If you own a 3-row SUV, you're probably not going to use the third row seats all the time. You probably need some space for cargo and bigger things you're going to carry with you here and there. So you would put the seats down and fold them flat into the floor. And the Mazda CX-90 is no exception. It's Mazda's large 3-row SUV, and the seats do indeed fold flat into the floor. But Mazda also seems to think there's a part of the market who wants a CX-90, but will never ever use the third row. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and this is the 2025 Mazda CX-70, which is in fact a CX-90 that doesn't have a third row installed. Mazda says that this is an all-new vehicle and on a different vehicle, and it's a CX-90, but it doesn't seat as many people as a CX-90. So let's talk about this, and we're going to start with the cargo area because that is where everything is so different. So welcome to the back of the CX-70. Mazda says you get more space back here because what they've done is they basically took out that third row, and where the well is, where that third row would fold into, they give you a storage cubby. I'll show you that in just a second, but dimensionally otherwise, this is the same back here as the CX-90. They really didn't change a whole lot otherwise. In fact, you still get the molded in cup holders in the back trim area because I suspect it was a lot cheaper to just leave that plastic versus remolding something that didn't have cup holders already cut into it. Now, interior dimensions are actually going to be slightly less in certain ways, very, very, very slightly, but I'm not quite sure how that shakes out. Probably nothing that you or your passengers would notice versus a CX-90, but on paper, this is actually a touch more compact in some ways, and it's the same car, so I don't quite know how that worked out. But in any case, they've got the regular cargo area here that is the same as a CX-90 with seats folded. The second row does fold down, and there are buttons back here that will do that for you. And then you can lift up the floor here and get all that extra storage. Now, the issue that I have with underfloor storage, this is not a CX-70 problem, it's just that this is how Mazda's marketing the car. If you have a box or, many boxes and things, of course, you cannot just easily lift this up and have access. And the reason I say that's an issue is because this is only a tiny little bit of cargo space here. What you actually need is to lift this up all the way to get to that well. And that well is, big enough, but this is a space that is inconvenient enough to access that I wouldn't be using it on a daily basis. This would be for that ultimate bit of storage on a road trip, or this is where I keep like jumper cables and, a first aid kit or something where I'm not going to access it very, very often. So in one sense, I see how the benefit shakes out, but I think for me, I'd rather own a 3-row and just keep it stored when I don't need it, because then if nothing else, I've got some friends in town, we're going to go get dinner, go see a show, whatever. At least I've got those extra 2 seats that fold up from the floor with seatbelts. So to me, that's where I would put my money, because the key here is that this costs the same as a CX-90. It's not like you're getting a big discount for picking the one with less seating in it. So I want to know if you would pick the one with more storage or the one with more seats, because they are functionally the same car other than that. Then moving to the front of the car, we'll talk about all the powertrains and everything. This is, again, the same as the CX-90, so you've got 2 different versions of inline 6-cylinder that is a gas-only powertrain, or you can have this as a plug-in hybrid. Now, I'm not going to talk through all the different drivetrains, but the inline 6 comes in effectively 2 states of tune. This is the Turbo S model, which is the hotter version. It's a 3.3-liter inline 6-cylinder with turbocharger on it, and that makes 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. It also sounds lovely when you really lay into it. We'll talk about that as we drive it in a second. Otherwise, transmission on this one is going to be a Mazda-developed in-house 8-speed automatic, but I didn't say torque converter because it's not a torque converter. Mazda is using a multi-plate wet clutch setup instead of a torque converter here, but it's not a dual clutch either. So it's kind of this weird mix where they're just substituting something for the torque converter on a traditional automatic. We'll talk about how that feels in the driving portion, but it's the same as what you get on a CX-90. All of these are going to be all-wheel drive, but it's a rear bias, rear-based all-wheel drive setup. That's how this chassis is set, and I really like how it drives. And then otherwise, again, same as CX-90, same fixed rate suspension, so no adjustable dampers, no airbags, none of that. And then this is on 21-inch wheels because this is a Premium Plus model, and I actually quite like how they look, and they've got a decent tire wrapped around them as far as sidewall height is concerned. So with all that, those are the kind of mechanics of it all. Let's get behind the wheel and talk about how this drives, because the last one I drove was a CX-90 and I towed with it. Now I want to talk about how this is as just a daily driver in a family car. So let's talk about driving the CX-70. And first things first, because we're right here at this kind of roundabout, the handling of these is excellent for what they are. You know, I said it's rear biased, and it is the same feeling to me as the CX-90 in that it feels very Porsche Cayenne-esque in that it will happily take a corner with, holy cow, Corolla Cross. It will happily take a corner with plenty of confidence. Now, I said this with the CX-90 in that I thought the CX-90 was a little stiffly sprung, and that's how they got that handling out of it. And in this case, I feel like this is not quite the same suspension tuning. It feels a little softer. I don't think Mazda's confirmed that it's a little softer, but it just sort of feels that way. And then if we put our foot in it, this really sounds good. It's got plenty of power and torque, and I really have no complaints with the drivetrain here. Plenty of power and torque. It sounds fantastic. Power all the way up to redline, which is like 6,500 RPM. I think I'd want this over the regular inline six-cylinder. I think having the extra bit of power on the tune is really a nice thing. The transmission is good. I like the transmission itself. It's responsive. You do have paddle shifters here, and I like Mazda gives you the option for how to get it back into drive when you're done shifting on your own. You can either let it revert after a certain period of time, or you can wait and it'll only go back to drive if you pull and hold the upshift paddle. So it's nice that they give you that option. A lot of configurability within the infotainment system, which is rotary dial based. Come back to that in a second. But transmission-wise, it behaves nicely, although I think the throttle tuning in the normal drive mode is kind of lazy, especially when you're on the highway and you want to pull out to pass someone. You get a lot of kind of slowness as far as the transmission's downshift logic versus how much throttle you're giving it. And I would prefer that it drop a couple gears right away versus, okay, we're in 8, let's go 7, 6, 5. Just go 8 to 5. Give me that passing power right away. If you're in sport mode, it does a better job of it, but the normal calibration, I'm just not a big fan of. What I am a big fan of, to relate back to the handling of this car, is the steering and the braking. The steering is really good. It is pretty direct without feeling too overweighted. It's a good weight. It's got enough communication so that you know where the front wheels are. I'm really a fan of what they've done with the steering here. Unlike the CX-50, where I think that's some of the best steering in a crossover I've driven, but it's very heavy for day-to-day driving, whereas this does not feel too heavy for day-to-day, especially in the city. It's easy enough to, parallel park or whatever you're doing. And also on that note, the brakes, I think they have a really great feel, good initial bite, good feel through the pedal travel. It is just a very well set up crossover if you like driving. So I really appreciate all of that. And, my complaints were I thought the CX-90 was too stiff. I'm not feeling the same thing here with the CX-70. So maybe they did a little bit. The weight is not appreciably different between the CX-70 and the CX-90. It's about a 50-pound weight difference, with the 70 being lighter because it's just the difference in how much those seats weigh when they pull them out. Seats, brackets, seat belts, all that good stuff. Now, other than the drivetrain in here, as far as how this thing is to live with, really good general interaction with the cabin, and I say it in that way because you've got a lot of nice buttons going on down here for your climate control. This is a 3-zone climate control system, so the second and third row get their own controls back there, but a lot of hard buttons that you can use without taking your eyes off the road. Same for the infotainment system. I know a lot of people are not big fans of Mazda's rotary dial. It's very polarizing online if you talk to people about it, but it really, I think, lets you operate the whole system very easily without taking your eyes off the road nearly as long. And people have complained that their system feels kind of archaic for software, and I just don't see it. I think it works totally fine. It's very simple with plenty of customization. And when you go into Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which are wireless in this car, the screen is a touchscreen for those purposes only. You can also use the rotary dial, but it works as a touchscreen as well. So I think the setup is perfectly fine. I also like the digital gauge cluster. It's not too crowded, it's not too simple, it's very well done. Although my one complaint, as I have with a lot of these digital clusters that are fully digital, we're just replicating dials. So maybe there will be a more creative way to, use the screen later on with an over-the-air software update or who knows what, but it's very easy to read. You can customize what displays here and there, so that is also pretty nice. People have also complained about the shifter because it's weird. It's pretty traditional, pretty easy to get used to, I think, if you've spent more than 45 seconds driving this car. Again, more buttons over here down by your knee. The one that I do like is the iStop off button. That is Mazda's version of auto start stop, which is no better than any other car with auto start stop that's not a hybrid. It's just not something that I particularly enjoy, and thankfully it's easy to turn off. And then Mazda does have their whole suite of safety systems for, you know, driver assistance, adaptive cruise control, and lane keep, and cross traffic alert, and all that good stuff. It all works pretty well. I think the lane centering could be a touch better, but generally pretty happy with it. But this is definitely a vehicle that you're going to buy because you care about the driving experience more than something like, say, a Toyota Grand Highlander, Nissan Pathfinder. Those are much more comfort first focused. This is going to have, I think, a firmer seat. It's going to have a firmer ride, but with that also comes the driving experience that, you know, this is the one if you really like to drive. So I do appreciate that, and it is plenty premium here. This one being the fully loaded Premium Plus model. You've got the two-tone steering wheel, which I love. You've got these Napa leather seats. They're heated, they're ventilated, the second row is heated. You've got this kind of suede-y material on the dashboard as well. And what I like about driving this particular car, this actual VIN that I'm in right now, this is a 10,000 mile example of one of these. And 10,000 miles is not that impressive for anything, but 10,000 miles on a press car that all of us rotate through, these are hard miles, okay? Press cars do not, I mean, I treat them well, but they don't always get treated well. They're in new hands every week. They're on display sometimes. They get worn out much quicker than a car that you would go buy, simply by virtue of how they get used a lot of the time. And what's nice is that all of these materials in here are holding up very well. The seats are showing no signs of wear. Everything just feels still very solid in here. The one thing that I've noticed is the shifter, the shift knob, has a teeny little bit of left to right play that, who knows, people might have been forcing it or messing with it. So not an indication of how these cars are going to age entirely, but also this is generally holding up really, really well. And then otherwise, while we're at a stoplight here, just looking around, good visibility, nice low dash. I am totally okay with the widescreen touchscreen here, half touchscreen, whatever you want to call it. Still out of my line of sight, which is great. I've got really good sight lines. The other thing I like is with the heads-up display, it shows you these two little kind of curve icons if you're driving, even without your turn signal on, and there's a car that would trigger the blind spot monitors. So obviously if you turn the signal on, you'll get the beep from the cluster if you want that. But they have in the HUD the little icons, and then your mirrors also light up, of course, if you're just driving past somebody. So they've got some clever little touches like that that I feel are just kind of well thought through. They're, again, thought through by people who like to drive. And that is still Mazda's kind of core, despite doing this push-up market. And with the push-up market, do we think that it works? In this case, yes. This feels plenty premium to me. I think for the price, it's well in line with, you know, the other large three-row crossovers that are in the segment. You're just not going to get a super base model out of Mazda for these. All of them are going to be generally pretty well equipped, even the more basic trims. Whereas, Toyota just came out with a Grand Highlander LE by comparison, because they're trying to drive that price down and get more of the market in that car. So just an interesting comparison, but I think what Mazda is doing is really a pretty nice effort here. And my only thing is that the pricing of these is no different than the CX-90. Realistically, it might be $600-800 difference, but for that, I think I'm still firmly in the camp of give me the third row, because I want that extra practicality as an option. I don't see the storage well as actually adding value to me. I'm really curious if it would add value for any of you, or if you'd end up in a CX-90 simply because you also value having those seats. But please sound off in the comments. Let me know if you'd pick a CX-70 with that little storage well instead of a third row, or if you'd pick a CX-90 with the third row and perhaps slightly less storage configurability. So In any case, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We've got plenty of more new car reviews, plenty of project car stuff, plenty of events being planned for 2025. So head over to outmotorsports.com. We've got our whole event calendar that we'll be posting very shortly, if not live already. And we've got a whole community online over there if you want to join us before some in-person events, meet some fellow LGBT automotive enthusiasts and amateur motorsport competitors. They would love to be your new best friends. So plenty of things to go see and do and watch. And until next time, stay safe, be well. See you for the next one.